You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Solana, Doge, and more. Cryptocurrencies and digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity, provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments throughout the world's leading crypto derivatives markets. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of crypto derivatives. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means we are back once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we go above and beyond our usual stomping grounds of your VIX and your Apple and your Tesla and your SPY options. Look a little bit further afield, see what's going on out there in the crypto markets. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the ever-exciting, at least we tend to think so around these parts, Options Insider Radio Network. Remember, if you like what you hear, do throw some stars. Could be on the Crypto Rundown, could be on the full network. Obviously, we've been doing this for quite some time, the full network. Over 16 years now. Crazy to say that out loud, but it's been going for quite some time. Of course, the new folks, particularly for the newer shows like this, the Crypto Rundown, always helps to have new stars out there, helps the algorithms continue to favorite the show. And of course, new people continue to discover the world of crypto and indeed the world of options every day. They need a place to turn in these very confusing markets. So leave some reviews to help them discover the content. Of course, if you want to discover more content of your own, who can blame you? You want to go beyond just the network we have on the podcast side, theoptionsinsider.com/pro, the place to go to gain access to all that fun. We just did Pro Q&A episode 100 last week. That was a fun time. Hard to believe already 100 episodes of the Pro Q&As where we pick the brains of some of the best minds in the world of derivatives. And of course, on top of that, you also get Options Oddities, where we analyze all of the unusual activity for the week. Live access to this, everything else we do out there. And of course, giveaways, pro trading crates, a whole bunch of fun. Theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go to discover all about that as we discover who's joining us this week in the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everyone, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the show where we welcome on guests from throughout the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond to proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And next up in the old hot seat is a newcomer to the program and indeed to the network. She is Lule Demmissie, the CEO of eToro US. Lule, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program.
Thank you for having me. Boy, I'm excited, man. I'm a newbie.
A lot to get started with. I'm glad you're excited, Lule. Before we dive into all the fun, as we are wont to do with all of our first-timers here on the network, why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in the financial space, as well as what it is you do day to day over there at eToro.
Thank you. So first of all, my name is Lule Demmissie. Hi, everybody. I am the U.S. CEO of eToro, which is the U.S. operations of eToro, which includes we offer retail. We're all about retail investors at eToro. We offer options, ETFs, stocks, fractional shares, and crypto. And our motto is really educate and empower the individual investor. It's a social trading platform. I've been at eToro now 2 years. Before that, I was in Ally Financial, which was an online investment shop for people who were, again, retail investors. Before that, I was at TD Ameritrade, where I cut my teeth into product and trading and all sorts of exciting stuff in retail investing, and then pretty much traditional finance. So every single move I've made pretty much has brought me closer to this space, which is where the fun is at, of course, which is the individual investor.
All the fun is at the end of the day. Well, speaking of that individual investor, I like the way you guys describe yourself, because I think of eToro, I think of a broker. But of course, you don't call yourselves a broker. You call yourselves a social investment community. That's kind of interesting. Why the distinction there, Lule?
Because, I mean, what you have to remember about eToro is, like, think something like a Twitter, and then you put on top of it a regulated financial firm that makes sure that that social network, even though it's sharing news and information and ideas with one another, we have about 30 million users across the globe. We're in about 100 countries. So you're basically going into sort of like the wisdom of the crowd ethos when you come into eToro, that shares ideas and thoughts and look at what people are doing. We have the ability to copy other people's strategy or to follow them. So it's really taking, like, if you think about it, like the nervous system of a social platform and placing it into a financial trading platform.
So a regulated Wall Street bets then. There we go.
I don't know about that. That's an ungenerous description. I think the way we look at it is, like, I'd rather have people come into the room and do responsible learning and investing and conversing than being out there all by themselves.
You know, it's interesting. You mentioned that you've been evolving your career to get to this point, which is on the retail side, the individual investor side. And many could argue, certainly for the last few years post-pandemic, much of the evolution we've seen in the financial markets, certainly in our world, the options markets, and also in the crypto space, a lot of the evolution, a lot of the biggest, most sweeping change we've seen, and also the largest influx of new participants has been on that side, on the entry level, the basic beginner retail side. So from your perspective, you said you've been at eToro now for a couple of years. What are your thoughts on the evolution of that side of the space, the beginner retail investor, and how have you seen it evolve even in just the 2 years since you've been at eToro?
Yeah, and I wouldn't say we're very entry level. I think we're probably entry level. But what we're seeing is, so remember at eToro, our user base is, pretty much like millennials, a little bit of Xers here and there, and then Ys, right? And Zs. So it's really, I often affectionately call it sort of tomorrow's investors are here at eToro. And what we see from that growth that we have seen in the last 10 plus years is a real transformation of individuals from being just bettors, if you will, to thinking about investing in a way that is a complement to either their long-term growth, their wealth, or current income that they're trying to generate from it. But ultimately, what I've seen over the arc of my time, not only at eToro, but in servicing investors in general, my entire career, is a maturation of that investor base to more of an opportunistic one and one that considers diversity in their portfolio, rather than one that is just singular in their view. I'll give you an example. When I was in 2008, I was at TD Ameritrade when I was at 2008. One of the things we saw is, like, an entire generation was frozen after the 2008 crisis, right? And what we saw in this environment, which arguably has been some of the toughest we've seen in a single generation, is people, yes, being more cautious, being more tempered, but you're seeing all this stuff we've been teaching all this time. Diversify, try to hold if you can afford to be a long-term holder, and be opportunistic when you can. We saw some of our highest degrees of engagement on our retail platform, even in this environment. Like when the banking crisis hit, people started leaning in. We saw contracts rising. We saw people buying long-term investments, ETFs that are sort of undervalued or holdings that are undervalued. So you do see like this trifecta of like, try if you can to hold, learn as much as you can and diversify. And then lastly, be opportunistic.
It's interesting. I know we chatted a little bit down at the OIC conference in Nashville a few weeks ago. I know you're very big on bringing in new demographics and new participants, new entrants into the market over there at eToro. As you're looking at these new entrants coming in, would you say that crypto, for many of them, is that their preferred vehicle? Is that their preferred starting point at eToro these days, Lule?
So remember that in the U.S., we started out as crypto, right? And then we started expanding to stocks and ETFs and options now. So we did have a crypto sort of like first orientation in our customer base, but that's changing drastically now. So we also see a lot of our customers that are coming through the doors doing stocks or options and et cetera. So we're definitely seeing people take more of the buffet, if you will. Globally, eToro is even more diversified. So crypto is not the majority of our business, but we are very much champions of the crypto space and feel that its innovations are really important for players like us to champion and protect.
So if I'm a new entrant coming into the eToro platform right now, and I want to focus, let's say, on crypto for the time being, what can I trade over there at eToro? Is it pretty much just spot in the big ones, your Bitcoins and ETHs, or does it get a little bit beyond that? What products do you have on the crypto side for people to trade?
So we have about 25 different coins that you can buy on our platform, which includes obviously Bitcoin, ETH, et cetera, the usual ones people understand. But, we actually, when you start onboarding, the first place we start is just, we designed our platform to be a paper trading platform. That's exactly the same as our regular platform. So why that's important is we definitely want people to start on the education front and the practice front. So that they're tracking things before they start putting things at capital at risk. So we're actually happy whether you're advanced enough to start trading right away, or if you're not, to do some of our paper trading products and our education, because at the end of the day, we want the customer to succeed and stick around, right? So ultimately, we're not really looking for them to do something they don't understand at first.
I've always been a champion of that type of approach. So many brokers these days, and we saw a lot of headlines with a lot of brokers getting into trouble in the early days of the pandemic, where they were just pretty much approving everyone and their uncle and their dog to have level 3 options trading, let's say. But I've always been a little bit more of a fan of maybe slowing that approach down, seeing what people want to trade and what their knowledge level is, and then proceeding from there, as opposed to someone fills out a form, hits a button, and the broker says, okay, you're level 2 or level 3 and have at it. I think it's a much more holistic and, as you mentioned, I think an easier way to get people eased into the markets and also maybe keep them from diving in over their heads a little bit too soon, Lule.
Yeah, and also, it's good. I think it's good. I do think practice is the key, though. Like, I don't think you just send to people to just education, but practice, which is why, to our mind's eye, paper trading is the ideal space for that, right? Like, you need to practice. Otherwise, you're not going to ever get your feet into the water. So whether it's like our platform and we have virtual trading where we give you I think something like virtual 200 or 100,000 of virtual dollars that you can put into practice and see what happens. You get to see market movement. On our options platform, which is, again, a simpler platform than most, because, again, we are more to the newer investor sort of logic. So we have things like long puts, long calls, long spread. But ultimately, we also, even on the options side, have what we call draft trading, which essentially allows you to put in a trade without actually putting capital at risk. So again, you get to see how that trade behaves before you start trading real time. And I do think practice is key, not just the lessons, but the practice as well.
Yeah, paper trading is the thing we've always encouraged. We wish more brokers would emphasize it as a good starting point. I know I get it. Everyone's in a rush to get the account funded and opened and get people trading. And so they think maybe paper trading is a bit of an impediment to that. But I think people coming in and learning how these markets work, especially when it comes to options and certainly to crypto as well, there's definitely a learning curve there. And they could at least experience some of that with money that isn't theirs, Lule. It's a little bit of a less painful lesson at the end of the day.
Yeah. And even with with options, I get a little kind of mad at our industry for not making it simpler. So we've really added like a lot of user experience simplicity so that, again, starting doesn't feel like you have to learn how to do brain surgery. But I know we're on a crypto show, so I won't deviate to the options plans just yet.
We could talk options a whole bunch, but we have a lot to get to here today. But you mentioned something interesting. I kind of want to circle back to it before. You mentioned the demographic makeup of your audience, particularly when it comes to age. You got a lot of the millennials, some of the Gen Zers just starting to cut their teeth out there in the trading world. Also, some of the Xers out there. I guess that those count as the olders. No boomers on your platform out there. But you notice some interesting stratification amongst those age groups. It sounds like the younger folks, the newer entrants, they're all in on crypto and all the Web3 associated things. While, let's say, some of the more seasoned, the more experienced investors and traders out there, they're pivoting a little bit more away from Web3 and towards the AI and those types of trades. Would you say that's a pretty fair breakdown of the audience?
I do think that, like, if you look at, for example, what's happened, just if you take Bitcoin as an example, right? You see that Bitcoin has outperformed the S&P 6 out of the last CPI days, right? 8 out of the last Fed days. So I do think that, certain coins are benefiting from the same level of sort of boost that you see that technology is being given, whether it's the AI thesis or otherwise, right? I do think that DeFi is still also winning their share on that front because it is innovative and in the future, right? So I do think, however, you've got a new thesis in the tech world, which is AI. It's not new, but it's getting much love in this environment. And we see it on our platform. And so we're so excited to also have stocks, right? Because you can now go on and be like, okay, if you believe this particular player is going to win in the AI race or this basket of players, you're able to buy them. So what we actually see, as I said, is I don't think it's like a either or thing that we're seeing. We're definitely seeing more of a let's diversify across the board.
You mentioned DeFi. That's been a very big talking point, certainly post the debacle of FTX back last November. As I've said on the show in the past, it does seem like that moment with FTX stratified the financial markets and indeed the crypto space. Some people took the lessons from FTX that, you know what we really need is something more akin to the traditional financial markets, centrally cleared, regulated to prevent this type of thing from happening again in the future. Others say no. The centralization of FTX, that was part of the problem, too much control in the hands of a couple of shady actors. So what we need is DeFi, make the whole thing decentralized, and that will solve the problem. I'm curious for you, Lule, we haven't really had a chance to chat with you about this in the past. So first off, let's start maybe what were your thoughts on the whole FTX debacle and maybe some lessons you folks at eToro learned from that? And then B, what are you seeing from your clients and your audience post FTX? Are they diving more into DeFi as a result, maybe pivoting away into what we would consider some of the more centralized type products? What are you seeing out there?
Yeah. So as I said earlier, like customers are becoming more savvy not to hop every single time somebody says go. And so we actually did see some people, for instance, when the FTX situation happened, some people moved some of their, coins to their wallet. Some people bought more coins. Some people just held. So actually what you're seeing is like they're looking at the same situation and playing out their theses in different ways, right? In terms of my perspective on what happened, obviously it's never helpful to have a large player come down at the level it did in the way that a manner it did. But you know what? It just, for us, it's just sort of like we stick to our knitting, right? We are regulation first. We just got our New York license, which is like, I don't know if you know, it's a hella hard license to win. We just got our New York bit license to be able to be operational in New York in the future. We are in over 46 countries and territories. We just focus to our knitting, keep a shop that is regulation centered, making sure that we're protecting the customer, making sure we're bringing to the best the customer, which is education and know-how, and then also a simple user experience. So I think that sometimes what happens when these events happen is that it colors everything the same color. And that's a shame because there's a lot of us who are believers out here who are trying to run a very clean and responsible business. And I feel like most of the market is actually like that, not the other way around.
We touched earlier on you call yourself an investment community for traders. We just partnered with another big community, which is Twitter. Effectively allows you folks people always want that. They always want to click that trade button right from the tweet. And now it sounds like you're offering that to folks, Lule.
Yeah, I mean, I'm so so excited about this. First of all, remember, we're a social investing platform. So it kind of makes sense that we would take an opportunity to partner with the big brother of social investing, especially one that has already touted itself to want to be a big sort of common ground for dialogue for finance and financial news, right? So it was super exciting to be able to partner with them, to be able to have a wider network for the eToro capabilities to be told. So, I mean, just so you know, what's so exciting about Cashtags is like it's less than a year old and it's got like something like 5 million average sort of Cashtag searches a day, right? That's not going to be something we're going to experience on our platform, as big as our platform is. 420 million searches of Cashtags since the start of the year. So ultimately, our goal is to be associated with social because that's our platform as it is. And then hopefully as as the user reads about a particular coin or particular digital asset or security, they'll walk into the eToro link that's there and then see what broader opportunities they have to be able to practice investing and trade with us. So it's a super exciting partnership.
Well, you're welcome, Lule, because we tweet a ton of Cashtags throughout the day. So we're driving a ton of business to your platform.
Advancing knowledge everywhere you are.
We're trying to fight the good fight out there. Well, you teased us with options earlier. We can't get out of here without talking a little bit of options. It is, after all, the Options Insider Radio Network. You folks over there at eToro US, you acquired the Gatsby platform. Ryan, one of the co-founders of Gatsby, they've been on a few times over the years. Our listeners are familiar with Gatsby. They kind of embrace that approach I was talking about earlier, having people come in and effectively do a little bit of early trading so they can get a sense for what people's capabilities and knowledge is before they unleash the floodgates of the level 1, 2, 3. So I've always been a fan of that approach. Now Gatsby is a part of eToro. So give our listeners a little bit of an insight. What are your plans for Gatsby and for the U.S. options market going forward?
Yeah, we're super excited about Gatsby. First of all, I say this a lot, which is like they feel like a brother from another mother. They are so akin to the thesis of eToro, which is like simplicity of use, embracing the retail investor and bringing investing to a new generation, right? And so when you look at their demographic of users when we first had them join us, it actually looks very much like ours, which was essentially, again, millennial or younger or with a little bit of extra sprinkled in. And so what we're doing now is we integrated much of the front end part of it at the beginning of the year. And so now you can actually do options business under the eToro options banner, which is great. You can download the app. And in addition to integrating a lot of the other elements of the options capability, the team is working on different ways that they can innovate the app, but also to see, as you know, we're a global company, right? 100 different countries we're in. What can we do to be able to think about broadening options reach beyond the shores of the U.S.? Because it's actually too special to just try to hoard in the U.S., if you ask me.
Too special indeed. Well, Lule, I appreciate you joining us at the top of the show here to give us a little bit of insight, a little bit of a check-in with all things eToro. We did just touch on the options front, but before we go, we'd like to leave our listeners, our audience wanting more. So if there are any other hints, any other teases for what people can look forward to coming down the pike from you and the team over there at eToro, now is the time. Lule, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. So super excited about some of the education stuff we're going to be rolling out. We just upgraded our eToro Academy, which is like a phenomenal education site that gives you all sorts of information. So check it out, eToro Academy. I think we're about to roll it out, if not already rolled out in the U.S. We're also going to be coming up, as I said, with a few other features and capabilities in our user experience for customers to actually see what our users are doing on our platform. The benefit of a social investing platform is you get a lot of data about what people are doing. So you're going to start seeing a lot of features that sort of productize that data as you come and use our platform, which is, as always, very valuable for a retail investor, as you know.
I always love to hear that. eToro Academy, the more effort being put into education, the better at the end of the day, Lule. So keep fighting the good fights. And listeners, listeners, if you want to check them out, they're easy to find. Just search for any Cashtag on Twitter now. You get right to Lule's front door. So,
absolutely.
Well done. Thanks for joining us. And I'm sure we'll welcome you back on down the road so we can get an update on all the interesting new developments you folks have in the hopper over there at eToro, Lule.
Thanks so much. Take care.
And now we have to keep on rolling with the show, listeners. It is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, listeners, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down all the action in the world's leading digital asset. Yup, it's good old BTC. Remember, if you want to see all these analytics we're going to get into, the volatility, the skew, all that good stuff, and quite a bit more, only one place to go, amberdata.io, the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires over there as we check in on the big dog, a little bit smaller this time than it was at the end of our show last week. When we were talking last week, Bitcoin is hanging out at 27,442. Coming into start of our show today, 26,888 puts it down, almost 554 handles on the week. Had not the biggest range on the week, certainly not compared to what we've seen in the past from good old Bitcoin. The high pretty much came during our show. That was pretty much it. 27,442 was pretty much the high. Pretty much went down from there, hit the low on Thursday of 26,482. So fell almost 1,000 handles, not quite, but pretty darn close. And then rebounded to where we are right now, 26,888. That relatively stayed range, all things considered. You might say nearly 1,000 points. That's not nothing. And you wouldn't be wrong, but compared to the history of Bitcoin, it isn't a ton of movement. And we've certainly been hanging out around this level for a little bit. Whenever Bitcoin tends to hang out, we see the vol tend to come in, and that's happening this week. In fact, coming in pretty dramatically. We were at about 50.5 on the 30-day volatility over there on Amber Data last week. Coming in to start today's show, 43.5, so down 7 points. That's starting to get pretty low for Bitcoin listeners and intriguing. You know, we were making this point last week on our Volatility View show, which, by the way, if you are intrigued by volatility, you should be checking it out. But if you're looking at the volatility landscape, that's starting to become commonplace out there, not just VIX, which is emblematic for volatility for a lot of people out there. VIX flirting with a 15 handle recently, but also most of the major tech names everyone associates with this rally in the market. You know, your Apples, your Microsofts, and all those names. They're hanging out at or pretty much below 52-week lows, setting new ones just about every day from a volatility perspective out there. And now we're seeing Bitcoin, which many have argued is a high-tech allocation at the end of the day, flirting with some pretty low levels out there as well. 43.5 coming into the start of the show. Again, if you listen to our This Week in Futures Options program every Thursday, where we break down all the activity across the broad trading range of products over there at CME, 43 is still fairly high. It's above a lot of the products we're going to talk about, which usually top out somewhere in the mid-30s. But it's going to be below your nat gases and some of your other frequent offenders that are still flirting with triple digits out there. So intriguing, and certainly we've seen Bitcoin get above triple digits itself, but not these days, 43.5. If you go a little bit farther out the term structure, out about 6 months to see what's going on out there, the vol is obviously going to be higher. It's at about a 47.3, but also still coming in nearly 4 points on the week. We were 51.2 last week, 47.3. So coming in 4 points 6 months out, that's a pretty decent decline overall in Bitcoin volatility this week. Let's see what that holds in store for us on the skew front. Remember, we did drop down to the 26,000 level and still are hanging out there right now. So we're seeing the skew shift to the negative side. It was positive 2.3 last week, negative 1 this week. So a little over a 3-point shift to the dark side. In terms of going a little bit farther out, about 6 months, the skew was about 2 points to the positive last week. This week, it's pretty much exactly flat. So all that positive bias has pretty much gone away, even farther out on the term structure. So what does that mean? That means effectively right now we're hanging out a bit of a knife's edge, a bit of a coin flip. The options market doesn't really have any bias in one direction or the other in terms of which way it's leaning right now, which is intriguing. It means we could hang out here or we could move aggressively away from this spot. Intriguing. The vol level will probably indicate we're probably not going to have an explosive move, but again, you never know out there in crypto at the end of the day. Let's go out to the open interest, and it's been kind of, again, a quiet week on that front as well. There's 212,500 calls open on Deribit right now. It's up about 5,000 on the week. And the puts is about 91,000 open. That's down about 1,500. So no love for the puts this week, which is kind of interesting. Let's get out to the biggest movers and shakers from an OI perspective this week. Let's see what our top 5 are this week. Number 5, we have 30,000 calls Those calls gained about 1,500 contracts this week. So they're number 5 on our OI movers and shakers this week. Again, doesn't always have to be gainers. It happens to be this week as well, but there could be OI losers as well. In fact, when we see expirations roll off the board, I would expect to see some losers moving in here as well. But this week, it's all gainers again. Number 4, the 29,000 calls. They gained about 1,900 contracts this week. Number 3, we have the 27,000 calls. They gained about exactly 2,000 contracts this week. Number 2, we have the 31,000 calls, gaining 2,400 contracts. And the biggest OI mover this week, the 28,000 calls. They gained nearly 3,000 contracts, about 2,800 on the week. So looks like for the most part, folks piling into calls, mostly on the upside, which is kind of interesting given where Bitcoin hung out this week. We didn't really threaten most of those strikes with the exception, really, of the 27,000 strike, which obviously we were through. But aside from that, it's been kind of a relatively quiet to downside week, and yet mostly opening to the upside. But again, not for huge size. So take that with a bit of a grain of salt. Speaking of not huge size, that's kind of the description you could have for BITO out there right now. It continues to languish, not just from an underlying perspective. It's down another 0.3 of a point this week, down to about a 15.5, but also from an overall volume perspective. We've been saying for a while the OI continues to drop, and that remains the case. It was at 90,000 a day not too long ago. Right now it's at 38,000 a day, down another 2,000. And it doesn't seem like today is going to be a day where they're going to budge that needle much. Only 22,000 contracts on the tape today, so probably not even going to hit that already anemic 38,000. So what's going on? Why are people losing their fascination with BITO? I mean, it has rallied. When it was doing 90,000 contracts, it was hanging out usually in the 10 to 13 range, so we're above that. So usually a higher underlying level translates to a little bit more interest in the options, but not the case out there these days. The vol also hanging out a little bit above what we're seeing on Deribit, but still down on the week. It's at about a 49, down about a point. Let's break down some of the top positions out there in Deribit right now. It was hanging out 8-2 calls over puts this week. It is 7-3, so one more put sliding into the top 10 this week. Number 10 is 14,000 of the Jan 20s. Number 9, 14,000 as well of the June 10 puts. So quite the spectrum right there, 10 puts and 20 calls. Number 8, 17, almost 18,000 of the June 5 puts, so even farther out of the money. Number 7, 20,000 of the Jan 18 calls. Number 6, 25,000 of the June 8 puts. Those are the end of month Junes, expiring on the 30th, which is kind of interesting. Lining up a little bit more closely with the expirations over there on Deribit. That's probably why they're doing that. Number 5, 27,000 of the Jan 65s. Number 4, 28, almost 29,000 of the Jan 15. So again, huge spectrum there. Jan 15s and then Jan 65s back to back. Number 3, 30,000 of the Jan 2025. So going out another year, 35 calls. Number 2, 33,000 of the same year, Jan 2025, 25 calls. Say that 5 times fast. And then rounding out the top positions in BITO right now, 46,000 of the Jan 2025, 30 calls. So a lot of action in the longer term upside here in BITO. You like any of those listeners? Jan 25, 30, or 35s expiring in 2025? I'm curious. Hit us up. Let us know. As we keep on rolling right on into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we explore everything outside of the big dog, which is Bitcoin, except, of course, for right now. We can't escape it when we're talking about the top 10 from a market cap perspective. Number 10, still Solana, hanging out there, even though it's below the 20 handle now, which is kind of interesting out there. Solana, of course, has had quite the tortured history post-FTX. Got annihilated down sub $10, then had a nice rally into the mid-20s, now back into the high teens again, but still hanging out at number 10, 7.8 billion worth of market cap. Number 9, Polygon, a little over 8 billion. Number 8, it's Doge. Doge, just vice grip on the number 8 spot. Nothing can dislodge it. 10.1 billion. That's been the case for a while now, so Doge, impressively steadfast out there. Take that, all you Doge haters. 10.1, almost 10.2 billion worth of Doge for number 8. Number 7, Cardano, 12.8 billion. Number 6, XRP, 23.8 billion. I won't belabor the XRP deal. They will or they won't at some point, and I guess we'll all find out together. Number 5, A USD coin, 29.4 billion. Number 4, BNB, 48.3 billion. Number 3 is Tether, 82, almost 83 billion. Number 2, it's ETH, 219 billion. And the big dog, Bitcoin, 521 billion worth of market cap. So just managing to stay above that $500 billion market cap level. Let's get out to number 2 from a market cap. Number 1 in a lot of your hearts, it is ETH. You're talking about a whole heck of a lot of nothing. That pretty much describes the week out there on the ETH front as well. It is getting into late May after all, listeners. So we are starting to get into not quite the summer doldrums, but we are starting to perhaps get a whiff of those in the air. On our show last week, 1830. Coming into the start of the show today, 1821. Down a whopping 9 handles on the week. In between, we had a little bit more range. The low came on Thursday, 1776. Excellent year. Not exactly the biggest range, though, from an ETH trading perspective. The high came after our show last week on Tuesday, a whopping 1831. So not exactly a banger week out there on the ETH front. But unlike Bitcoin, which kind of a relatively quiet week, we saw the vol come collapsing in. ETH vol, pretty much the same. It was a 43 last week and a 43 this week, which weirdly enough, also putting it exactly on the same level as Bitcoin. Now that starts to get attractive. When you look at these two products, one's historically more volatile than the other. That is ETH. So being able to get one at the same relative vol level as another product that is historically more volatile, that's kind of interesting. Maybe opening up some interesting opportunities for spreading between the two vols of these two products. I know for a lot of the savvier folks out there, I'm sure that's a trade they are entertaining right now. In fact, if you follow the Amber Data folks on Twitter, they're always tweeting out interesting nuggets and findings. I'm sure they've had quite a bit to say on that front. Sign up for their newsletter if you haven't done so. It's a lot of interesting insights that come out outside of episodes of this show. Let's go a little bit farther out on the vol front, and it's almost exactly the same. In fact, it's eerily similar. Last show, we were at a 48 3/4 on the 6-month vol. Coming in to start of today's show, 48 3/4. So we ran it a couple of times to make sure our numbers weren't stuck. Everything is the same as last week, listeners. So one of those kind of rinse and repeat types of week out there. Skew-wise, you saw a little bit of evolution. It was negative 2.5, so negatively biased last week, which means leaning towards the puts ever so slightly. This week, a negative 2. Not a heck of a lot of evolution there. Longer-term skew, it was a negative 1.2. 6 months out last week, a negative 1.4 now. So again, kind of a rinse and repeat on the ETH side. A little bit of evolution on the OI front. We have the puts gaining 53,000 contracts to 833,000. The calls gaining 100,000 contracts to 2.1 million over there on Deribit. In terms of top OI movers on the ETH front, kind of interesting mix. Again, it's all gainers this week, which is kind of interesting. Number 5, we have the 2,300 calls. They gained 25,600 contracts this week. So there was volume. There was trading going on. Just net, not a heck of a lot of movement at the end of the day, or really evolution on the vol or skew front. Number 4, got some puts sneaking in there finally. The 1,700 puts, they gained 26,000 contracts this week, which again makes some sense. We look at the range. We broke through the 1,800 into the 1,700 range for a little bit last week. So makes some sense. We would see some puts, especially with the negative skew we're seeing out there. Makes some sense. We would see some puts making their way into the top 5. In fact, I'm surprised we're not seeing more. Number 4, the 1,700 puts, 26,000 new contracts piling in there this week. Number 3, the 2,100 calls. So back to the upside. They gained 26,800 contracts this week. Number 2, it's the 2,000, the even money, the par calls, gaining 28,800 contracts this week. And the big dog out there this week, the 2,200 calls, gaining nearly 35,000 contracts. So a lot of people pouring in to 2,200s, 2,100s, and 2,000s. Maybe some vertical action, obviously, going up there as well. So intriguing stuff. As I mentioned earlier in this segment, not so intriguing on the Solana front. 19 3/4 when we kicked off the show. About 21 1/4 at the end of our show last week. So off about $1.50 on the week. So not exactly feeling the love out there on the Solana front this week. A little bit different in XRP, 42.5 cents last week, 45.9 cents this week. So gaining a little over 3 cents on the week. So a little bit of love out there for XRP. But again, until we get some resolution out there, not going to see a huge move one way or the other. A Dogecoin, 7.2 cents last week, a whopping 7.3 cents this week. So That's how it manages to hold on to its number 8 spot in the top 10 out there. Litecoin, 87.81 last week, 91.14 this week, up about 3 1/3 from our show last week. Cardano, 37 cents last week, 36.8 cents this week. So, again, a whole heck of a lot of nothing on the Cardano front. Polkadot, 5.37 last week, 5.32 this week, down a whole nickel on the week. And our old friend Shiba Inu, last week, 0.0000088. This week, 0.0000088. So a whole heck of a lot of nothing out there as well. Let's wrap it up a little bit of our old friend Syscoin that joined us on the show a couple of weeks ago. Last show was 11.80. This week, 12.3. So up a whopping 0.005. So there you go, listeners. There's your mover and shaker for the week. All right, everyone. That's going to do it for us here on the Crypto Rundown this week. I want to thank our guest, Lule Demmissie from eToro US, for joining us in the Crypto Hot Seat this week. Remember, if you want to check them out, just search for eToro, or, of course, search for those Cashtags on Twitter. Then you click trade, and that'll bring you over to eToro as well. A lot going on the crypto front, also on the options front, 2 areas that very much interest us here on the network. And, of course, if you want to see more of what Amber Data has to offer, only one place to go, amberdata.io. That's AMBERDATA.io. Kick the tires and light the fires out there. Tell them we sent you. They'll be very excited to talk to you over there. That's all we have in store for you on the network today. Back again, I do believe, tomorrow with double dose of options boot camp. So moving it. Not going to be on our usual Education Wednesday. Wednesday coming back at you, the Pro Q&A. So for all of you who enjoyed the free and open taste of the Pro Q&A, coming back at you with episode 101. If you want to check that out, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. Back again on Thursday for the option block, as well as, of course, This Week in Futures Options. Friday, volatility views. And then, of course, for all you pro folks, back again for Options Oddities. And then all the way through the weekend into Monday and the next episode of the Crypto Rundown. Stay safe out there, everybody.
The Crypto Rundown is brought to you by Amber Data. If you're entering the digital asset class, you'll need access to granular on-chain and market data from multiple venues to power research, trading, risk management, and compliance. Amber Data delivers comprehensive data and insights into blockchain networks, crypto markets, and decentralized finance, empowering financial institutions to apply traditional finance methods to digital assets. Amber Data eliminates the infrastructure setup, integration challenges, and maintenance headaches to access digital asset data, reducing cost and time to market to enter the digital asset class. Learn more and download their digital asset data guide at www.amberdata.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.